name's Frances Lowe. I'm Regulatory Affairs Director at PRS for Music, which is a music rights collecting society representing 92,000 direct composer and music publisher members and many millions across the world when we license here in the UK.
I'm Andy Prodger. I'm the Chief Executive of BECS, which is the British Collecting Society which looks after audiovisual performance. We have just over 27,500 performers represented at BECS and their estates. We are somewhat, I suppose, of a strange creature as to the fact that within the United Kingdom, unlike France is representing music, audiovisual performers actually don't have any licensing rights within the UK and have very little in the way of copyright. So it's interesting, I suppose, why I would be on this panel or have an interest.
Jeremy Silver. I'm chairman of a company called Music Metric, which is a data analytics business. We gather data on recording artists, social media activities, web mentions about them, and the degree to which their music or their recordings are file shared on BitTorrent, and we analyse all that data and we publish it in the form of various reports. We make some of it openly available and we sell other parts of it to people, and we do that for currently 700,000 different recording artists on a global basis, and that's the nature of the business. And we don't do that for any other reason other than the fact that we're very excited by it and we think we can make a living out of it. We don't have any other sort of motivation. So that's one of the things that I do. And then the other thing that I do is I advise the Technology Strategy Board on what their investment policy and programme activity should be for the creative industries.
Hi, I'm Pete Bradwell. I'm from Open Rights Group, and I've been working for about since I joined nearly 2 years ago on our copyright policy.
When we come to the question of what evidence, I've always felt that it is a mixture of legal, economic, case history, and also the voice of the individual members, in our case of the individual members of the organisation who rely on us, and ensuring that their voice is heard well enough.
It's easy to look at the IPO principles and say that's a really good start. Transparency, I think, I agree, is really, really important, not only in the data and the methodology so that we can scrutinise where figures and opinions have come from, but also who's saying them and why they're saying them and the relationships involved in producing a report.
So in relation to what is good evidence, I think our view is very much based on, evidence should be factual, evidence should be clear, evidence clearly should be transparent, but we have difficulties as performers in trying to provide that evidence, because much of our evidence is not economic evidence, and it's not necessarily even past evidence, but fear evidence as to what are the consequences potentially moving forward. And therefore I would always ask the question in relation to evidence, how evidence is weighed against impact assessment. Are they the same thing? Are they two things that run hand in hand?
There is really a role for case studies, for stories, for examples, for the opinion, which helps point policymakers, I think, in the right direction. It helps them understand who's affected by a particular proposal and why, and where to look for more evidence of those perspectives and opinions. So I hope we don't lose sight of that, the value of that sort of qualitative work as well.
Because what's evidence? Evidence is something that tells you that something happened and this is the reason why. But we're dealing with stuff that hasn't happened yet. So evidence may not be the thing that helps us. It may be useful in some respects. And it's useful in one very, very important respect. And that is that when we think about economics in this context, what we're dealing with is what is commonly referred to, and someone will tell me who coined this phrase, so I don't know, but what we're dealing with is Tarzan economics. This is the notion of Tarzan economics, is the one that says, my business model is hanging from this tree and I'm hanging on to it like mad, but I've got to get through this jungle, right? And in order to get through this jungle, I'm going to have to move to another economic model, which apparently is one of those lianas over there that's hanging from one of those trees, but I don't know which one it is, so I'm going to hang on to the one I'm hanging on to for as long as possible until I can make sure that the one over there is actually not going to come away in my hand. Because if I reach out for the one that's over there and it comes away in my hand, I'm going to fall to the jungle floor and get devoured by insects. And if I don't pull out to that one and hold on to this one, I'm not going to make any progress, because guess what? This one's really fraying quite badly too. Tarzan economics is where incumbent rights-owning businesses live on a day-to-day basis, and it's ugly. It is a horrible, uncomfortable, and scary place to be. And I have immense sympathy, and I have personal experience of working in that environment. It is not easy at all. It's extremely challenging. And the challenges that they feel are also felt by all the individual creators and content originators and rights producers who make up the constituency that sit behind those rights bodies and rights companies.
People do need to earn, but at the same time, we need to be flexible in how we look at the questions of evidence, both in relation to past and what might be future.
And I think we've got an opportunity now, given there is self-regulation and regulation going in parallel, to set the metrics for whether that policy is working and whether it was set right.
So it really falls on policymakers to take that sort of political leadership on and to set out an inclusive and open process. So that the people involved can contribute the evidence they have and they know where it's going to end up and what kind of decisions are going to be taken on the basis of it.
And if perhaps as policymakers we understand that micro-negotiation may actually have value and be important, but we should set ourselves up to do that, rather than thinking that we're setting ourselves up to make some massive cultural, social and economic reform that's going to change the lives of millions in any significant way as far as copyright is concerned. If we had that realisation and that recognition, which I think most of us probably end up that we do have when we sit down and negotiate these things, then that is probably a better outcome. And the only question to ask is, if you do realise that and you do take that view, is the process we've got the right one, or should we be re-examining the process?